Welcome to Soundbreaker. On today's episode, we're talking to Einar Helde, who is a groundbreaker in the music industry. Thanks for joining us today. And for our listeners who might not be familiar with you, could you please introduce yourself and tell us a bit about what you do before
Hi,
we
Bob.
dive into it?
Yeah, hi, Bob. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure.
I'm Einar, and I come from Norway, but I live in Denmark with my wife and son. And I work in the music space across both publishing, rights management, technology, and business.
Mhm.
I My main focus is AIMS API, which we'll get into later on. But
Absolutely.
I've been in the business yeah, since started working basically since 2006.
Great, great introduction. Um, Einar, if you don't mind, take us back a bit, back in your early days, teenage, or when did your passion develop for music, and how what led you towards that great path of music and being creative and all of that.
Yeah, I think music has always been around me from my parents, and I've been playing a lot of music. So there was a lot of Beatles and Creedence and Dire Straits from them. So that's how I got into that.
Uh
And
huh.
then in the 90s, I started discovering things on my own, like Nirvana and Oasis and that kind of music. And I never played an instrument myself, so I never saw myself as a music person, but always been like a music lover. And I really randomly fell into this industry.
Hmm. Interesting. And how did you? How did it happen? I mean, what was the cause of it? You said randomly fell into this industry.
Yeah, it was very random actually. I had moved from Norway to Copenhagen in Denmark to study
Yes.
a master's in business and commercial law.
Uh huh.
And as most students, you run out of funds at some point after all the partying and socializing. And I needed a job, and there was a company here that needed a Norwegian part time salesperson to sell production music to the Norwegian music industry. So I
Uh
applied for the
huh.
job, went for an interview on a Friday, and started on the Monday. So that was quite random. I hadn't planned to go into music at that time.
Wow. So that's where the journey really started.
Yeah, really. And I stuck around in that industry since then. So built my career within the production music space.
Interesting. I mean, you had an impressive career before Ames API, before you started Ames, including your time at the International Production Music Group and NRG Agency. And how did those roles prepare you for the challenges of the music tech world?
Yeah, so the IPMG is the International Music Production Group, or
Yes.
Production Music Group. And I was a co-founder of that organization, at least under that name. And that was because I'd already then been in the industry for more than a decade. And I have my own production music catalog and specialize in this little niche of the industry, which
Uh-huh.
hopefully some of your listeners will know. But production music is music that is made for fast clearing for film and TV. And it's a nice little world where we know everyone, and you get across all the publishing rights, collection of royalties, also the master rights you own, and you need to know how to license for sync. So you get a lot of knowledge that is not something everyone knows. I know sync is a big thing now, but it's not necessarily understandable that you have to understand all the aspects of that to run a production music catalog. And in IPMG, we work for the interest of our industry. So we have an election and we choose the ones who can help us globally enhance the production music industry.
Yeah.
Uh, so I'm still on that board and I'm very proud of it. And we do great things for musicians. That's kind of what we want to do. I think we are dependent on great musicians and composers in our industry. And um, one that actually led us to the neighboring rights group, which is also neighboring rights is something that people talk of. It's a big industry. But back in 2018, when we started Neighboring Rights Agency, Nobody or very few in the production music space collected that right for the performer. So anyone who is the artist on a record has an equitable remuneration right in Europe,
Yeah.
and nobody was collecting it, but the money was there. So my co-founder in Ames was actually the one who came up with the idea for NRG. He said, "I'm collecting these rights in Czech Republic. Can you help me see if this is something we should do globally?" And then I moved to Prague, and we built up that collection agency. And suddenly, performers were getting up to 20% more money every year. And if it's money they never expected, then it's like they like you. So it was a good way to build a network in our industry.
I mean, neighboring rights is a very, very, interesting thing, and there is a lot of money there that a lot of artists don't even know about it. So surprised. Is it hard to collect neighboring rights from every country, or is it easy now? Because I heard some people say, "Hey, it's really not easy to collect from that particular country, or this part of the world, or that part of the world." Is it still the case, or it's easier now? Everybody kind of cooperating and recognizing that that the neighboring rights right.
Yeah, neighboring rights is kind of a fluffy thing because it's not the same globally.
Yeah.
And it's in the EU legislation, there is a protection, but in the
Mm,
US, it works a bit differently. So it's to your question, it's quite complicated to collect properly around the world. And all
mm,
the neighboring rights CMOs, they collect for different rights, they distribute in different ways, and it's not as advanced as the copyright side of the business. So the PROs share money well around, while this is a much smaller industry. So they are not as advanced technology wise, but the CMOs are still handling so many recordings and so many artists. In
hmm
some ways, it's more complex than copyright.
Yeah.
So it's not magic, but what we did was we found out the process in each different country,
Yeah.
how to become a member and how to collect. And all of them had different rules. So that was one of my big frustration. I had to lobby and find out how can we become members at all. Um, and because of that job and other neighboring rights collection companies or agencies, it's now easier if you go with an agency, because you will become a direct member in each country instead of waiting for your country to receive the money from their partners. We see it as much more efficient. And a funny story there is after spending 2 years collecting this know-how, one of our clients were like, "But why should I go through you and give you a percentage when I can do it myself?" And I told them,
Mm,
"I'll
no
give
way. Good
you
luck.
the contact information, the sheets. You can do it yourself. You don't want to do it." I said, "Yo, send it to me." I sent it over, and he came back like 2 weeks later saying, "Okay, it's worth the percentage because there's so much registration and paperwork, and you have to send your passport, and you have to do all these things that you don't want to do as an performer
How
or
many?
an artist." Yeah.
How many times over you have to do it because you got to deal? How many countries in South America? Then how many countries in Asia? How many countries in the Middle East? How many countries? I mean, okay, you said Europe already because the European Union is it's a bit more organized, and I don't know how much organized. Then you got Eastern Europe and Russia, and oh, forget it. I mean, it must be, I don't want to say it, but it must be a nightmare dealing with all of this.
It was a nightmare, but I moved on. No, I'm still a board member and one of the founders of that company. But um, what we try to do is actually do the work where it makes the biggest difference. So we started on top. Which countries are collecting the most money? Which
Yeah.
countries are protecting the rights for TV performance? So not radio, because we are working mainly with TV. And then getting the top 20 countries or top 15 countries there will cover 90% of the world revenue for our artists.
Got
Um,
it.
so you don't necessarily need to get the 1 cent out of the Middle East. Middle East
Yeah.
doesn't protect it in the same way. So why be a member until it's, yeah, reasonable to be a member there?
I see. Interesting. Interesting. Okay. Moving from music rights into tech, something you also dabble with and you're in. What was the moment that made you think there has to be a better way leading, better way leading you towards founded Ames API.
Yeah, so I've done a lot of music searches myself, searching with keywords, browsing through albums, looking for the right song, and it
Yeah.
takes hours. You spend so much time, and then you hope that you pick the right track that they will choose.
Hmm.
And I think maybe I'm wrong with the year, but around 2015, there was a French company who came up with a way of searching with a reference track. So you can drop
Mm.
in a YouTube link and say, I like something in this style. And then it search your catalog based on that. So you didn't have to describe it.
Wow.
Unfortunately for us, I was a client of theirs. Uh, they were sold to Spotify and they pulled that
Oh.
from the market. So at that time, Martin, who is my partner in Ames, he was also a client and he wanted to find something that was as good. And there was nothing in the market. There was other players, but nobody was up to that standard.
Hmm.
And he basically went out and looked for somebody in machine learning who wanted to work with audio. And he did this project internally with his production music company. And at some point, when I was working at running NRG, he came to me and he said, I think we got something really good. I want you to test it. And I tested it and it worked really well. He rolled it out with some of the first clients. And then, no, we need this to be a separate company. And then we got together and four of us, Jan and Martin and Victor, the machine learning genius, and me,
Hmm.
we founded Ames and decided that this technology company is something that all music companies should be interested in having.
Wow. And are they?
They are.
Uh-huh.
I can't say we cover the whole world yet, but in the production music space, which we have domain
Yeah.
knowledge and expertise, we are
Yes.
with all the big ones. So if you go to a website for a production music company and are able to drop in a link or a file or
Yeah.
click a button that says "Find me more similar," it's
Hmm.
most likely powered by Ames. And even though it's not branded like that, it's the premium standard for sync companies to use.
Interesting. Um, Now diving into Ames, now we're talking about it, API. Can you explain how AI technology became a game changer in the music search and discovery for your platform?
Yeah, it was built by industry people who had the
Hmm.
same problem themselves. So both me and Martin had this problem that search takes too long. You don't find the best tracks,
Correct.
and the clients feel the same. You know, if you try to describe a track with
Yeah.
3 words, and when I try to describe the same track, we will use different words. And if you try to describe a Beatles track, you will kind of describe all the Beatles tracks, like in keywords. So when we found a way to analyze audio, and Victor and his team created a great algorithm to find songs that have a similar feel. So that's the
Hmm.
secret sauce. Like, our research team is world class and they find the feel of a song purely based on the audio. Then you suddenly started getting only relevant results. And things that took you hours before now took you minutes, and you didn't have to be a music expert to do the search. Anyone can do the search. And from there, it was more like, how can we build a business based on this? And what else can we build on top of this amazing algorithm?
Hmm. Really? I mean, it's a great, great project that you guys did and a great service to the industry, I have to say. It's something that needed. With Ames API success in utilizing AI again, can you share a standout story where this technology significantly impacted a client or client's music asset management?
I can, and there are many of them because we're getting
Share.
love letters. We're getting love letters from people working at the majors or working at big companies saying, I have dreamed of this technology for 20 years. Thank you so much for making it. Because now they're finding the great music. And one of our first clients, an Italian company, told us, like, your technology kind of saved my company because I have to handle millions of tracks, and there's no way I can give great results to my clients based on metadata from 100 different libraries, because
Yeah.
everyone will use different words. And now you're searching across everything at once. And I think when we talk about AI and music, a lot of people go to generative, right? They want, like, now we
Correct.
can create music on the fly. It will be amazing. And I think it's not going to be a silver bullet. You're going to create 1,000 bad tracks for one good track, or that's just a random number.
Hmm.
So, and as this kind of number grows, you see the numbers are being added to Spotify. You see all these big numbers all the time.
Hmm.
It will just grow faster with generative. So I would say that I think music search and discovery AI is more valuable for the music industry than generative,
Oh,
because
absolutely. Sure.
where you can find the great stuff that you're looking for. You can bring back the good old things that have been digitized but not tagged. You can basically curate for every individual person's likes based on their audio, and that's what people love. And the people who work for Ames, of course, have access to the technology, and
Yeah.
they use our technology to discover other music. So if you love a certain electronic genre, if you go to a normal streaming platform, they will give you things that are similar based on other things. We give you something similar based purely on the feel,
Hmm.
and that uncovers indie bands, that uncovers things that you would never discover otherwise. So there's a lot of applications for it.
Looking ahead, where do you see the future of AI in music and media? And how does AIM's API plan to evolve with these upcoming changes or trends?
Yeah, I think I touched on the biggest trend is that the volume is going up.
Big
So
time.
it's easier to produce both music but also creative content using music. So the creator economy is already booming.
Yeah.
Uh, People who are not directors or videographers are creating great content that is competing with whatever you see on HBO or Netflix. They're competing for the same time. And with that kind of volume, anyone can get in. You kind of lower the threshold for who can be a creative. And I don't see that stopping anytime soon. And we try to do this in the search space. So we launched something called prompt search last year. It's a
Hmm.
natural language search using multi-layer AI,
Yeah.
and that means that anyone can search for music. So you can put in there, "I'm having dinner with my wife, and we're having Italian food," and we can build you a playlist based on that. Then it will go into Italian. It'll find you something romantic, and you don't have to look for the song or the artist anymore. You can say, "This is the mood." Or for someone who produces a film, they can say, "I have a scene driving fast through New York City in the 70s," and we will find you music based on that. So anyone can now search for music. We can tell you, like, what kind of music is suitable for an onsen in Japan. We can tell you what is good when you're sailing a gondola in Venice. You don't have to know the music. You can just say, "This is the scenario I'm in," or "This
And
is
it
the."
pulls it out.
It pulls it out.
Amazing. Amazing. With all this technology and all this advancement, what's next, do you think, for the music industry? And you said the creator side of the business is booming. There's so much music going in, whether it's, original artist driven music or artist kind of half and half between artist creativity and AI help and AI generative music. So it's pretty much really music coming in from everywhere. What do you think is next? What's going to change? Can it just continue like this, or it's going to be a new wave kind of displaying all this music? Or what's your opinion on it as you're in the music tech business?
I don't think we need that much more music, uh,
Hmm.
but we won't stop that. So then it's more, how can I find the music that you like? How can we put it in front of the consumer so that we're
Yeah.
actually appealing to them? And the
Hmm.
consumers kind of decides this. A
Hmm.
few years back, everyone was thinking like, "Oh, we need high quality streaming services that can compare to CDs, or like the best production quality." And then
Yeah.
everyone is listening on their phone, on their headsets, and then
Yes.
the whole human race adapted and say, okay, this is the quality we want to listen to now. We're listening to lower quality, we're used to it, it's in our ears, and then just the aficionados are going for the high fidelity stuff. Um, and we can see it in across technology and videos and footage as well. Like our perception of what is good changes, and that happens
Yes.
with music now every day. So look at the genres. What genres are people putting out today? Whatever they want to call their genre, right? So there's like 10 million genres. So
Yeah, I'd agree.
yeah, hopefully we can democratize the music space. With search and with more openness, then there's room for everyone. And we see that indie artists are growing a lot across platforms because it's now easier to find the music you're looking for. So there's a space for more people or more artists, and everyone will look for what they like. So I think we'll see like a spread, not just Taylor Swift, but also there will be a bigger spread below it.
So you are keeping it positive. You say, yes, there is still room for growth and more new artists to come in and join, try out, and put out their music. It's not as everybody kind of, look at it. I mean, okay, it's split. Some people look at it negatively with AI, or there's no more room, it's going to take over. But your opinion, no, there's still plenty of room for growth and new artists to come in and display their talent and grow in the business.
I think so. More people in the world have access to music and streaming. It's
Correct.
never been easier to distribute your music. Anyone
Yes,
can get out
correct.
there. So it's more like how do you discover it? What is interesting for you? So I think there's definitely room to grow. And how you monetize that, we can't predict right now. But the question for me is like, will more musicians be able to live off of music? Because until you can live off it, then you're kind of not a professional in that sense of the term. But I also think more people can live off it because it's easier to monetize across the whole globe now.
Well, you have to perform, you have to tour. Yes, big artists have to do that. So, what are you pretty much saying? Young artists, or upcoming artists, or smaller artists, it's going to be extremely difficult for them to make money from it. It's going to be just display of talent, unless if the music being used for sync and micro licensing and all of that.
No, I think that's a big opportunity for them. I think
Yeah,
with the knowledge sharing now, and in my
yeah,
space, everyone is talking about sync, but you have the micro
yeah,
licensing, you have YouTube monetization. There's a lot of revenue streams. So
correct.
the old notion of having to tour, I think, only applies for a certain level of artists.
Artists,
Yeah, but even in that space, we can make it easier to discover which bands are in my city now that I would like, because you can make search for music you like, and we'll show you similar bands to that, right?
hmm
So that might bring people out, and the live industry is also doing quite well.
Yeah.
So I think there are more monetization opportunities. Ergo, there is a bigger chance to live off it.
And let's not forget merchandising also for artists. That's a big thing.
Merch is big, so the super fan thing is
Yes.
real. I'm not an expert in that field, but I see the word pop up, and that you
Super
need to
fun.
monetize
Yes.
them.
Yes. Yes. Is it something that Ames API looking into, or no? Just you keep it. What are you doing? You just stick to what you're doing, or maybe expand the
We
field a bit.
definitely expand every week. We talk to a new client, and we get a new perspective, and we see a new use case.
Uh,
Super fans, I haven't found a use case for yet, but we actually discussed it this week. If there's something there.
oh,
Um,
okay.
But now we're looking into like A&R, for example, finding matching songwriters, producers, and artists. So we're looking into different spaces, but we want to be the world's best music search, no matter what input you have or what you're trying to achieve.
Well, you're on your way there for sure. Definitely, definitely,
Oh,
you on
thanks.
your way there. Yes, you and the team. Okay, we're gonna give credit to everybody. Obviously, you not
Yeah,
just you, the team that with you. Yeah, and
we
your
are.
genius.
Company.
What is it? Machine learning guy.
Yeah, no, the research is the biggest difference from us and other companies. Is that we
Yes.
have a technology that really works, and
Uh-huh.
we prove that by letting anyone try it. So you can go to our website and just put things in and
Nice.
try what we have, um, and hopefully you'll get addicted to it.
Yes. Mention the website. Don't, please don't be shy on it. So our listeners and viewers could go to the site and try it out themselves.
Yeah, no, it's aimsapi.com. And on the front page, you will see prompt search, which is natural language search. It's on a small database of music, but if any company wants to test it on their catalog, it's super easy. We'll get you up and running within a week.
You see, you heard it first on Soundbreaker. Go and try it. It's easy. It's
Yeah.
that simple. Absolutely. The music industry is known for its challenges and setbacks, Inar. Can you share a difficult moment that you faced in your career and how did you overcome it? Please.
A difficult moment in my career has been
Yes.
probably coming in out of Denmark from the production music space.
Yeah.
Like my own library is quite small compared to the big players that we work with at Ames. So coming out there and getting the kind of traction and being heard by the others in our industry was kind of challenging. It took some time to like build up that, I wouldn't say confidence, but that other people believe that what you're talking about when you're from a smaller company.
Hmm.
Um, and then expanding also with Ames into like new verticals has been a learning experience where we're trying to understand how the big world works. Like the big corporate world is different than the production music world that we know and love.
Yes.
But that's been challenging and testing your patience, um, because deals that we make can take 3-4 years
Hmm.
in the making. So then
Wow.
staying positive throughout that, believing that what we're doing is right, is challenging, but we're in the lucky situation that we can make it happen. And I must say, all the companies that I mentioned are bootstrapped companies. So we never had funds to spend on big marketing campaigns or booths or anything like this on big events. So we've gone the hard route of talking one by one to the people and growing network that way. And that also requires patience, I would say.
It does. Very inspiring. So there was no funding behind building this whole infrastructure at Ames API.
No funding, neither NRG, APL, or Ames have had any outside funding. We're still fully owned by the founders, and going strong so far. It's not a bad situation to be in now with the investment climate compared to last year. But
Oh, this is great. And you guys making profit.
we make profit and then we spend it because we hire and grow. So we're not
Well,
looking.
I wouldn't use the word spend it, invest it, because obviously the growth is tremendous and the service you're providing is actually helpful and needed. So it's well spent profit, I would say.
Yeah, hopefully
Yes.
so. Yeah.
Yes, yes. Um, let's see. It's very inspiring, obviously. In your opinion, what is the common misconception people have about the music industry?
How big it is globally. If you look as an industry, with all the media coverage it's getting, it seems like it's the biggest industry in the world, and it's far from it. And also that it's very far to the top. Of course, the top is difficult to get to, but when you start working within the industry and you build a network, it's possible to get in touch with the right players and the right people in the biggest companies. Because if you do something interesting, anyone want to hear about it because they don't want to miss out. Um, the big misconception I would say is about how it approaches AI. I'm not saying everyone, but I've been in several meetings where people like say, "Oh, we want just one AI partner," and I'm like, "What do you mean?" No, we want an AI company to solve our problems. I'm like, yeah, we're an AI company, but we solve search. We can't solve everything else for you. We can't clean up your old metadata of who's the performers on different things, at least not
Yes.
yet. But feeling that AI is one thing makes it a bit difficult. And I think last year when ChatGPT became like a phenomenon, that
Hmm.
opened a new way of looking at it for many companies, and also for me. It's like now it's
Oh.
accessible. We know the
Uh-huh.
power of it. You
Hmm.
probably tried it yourself, so you know that. Oh, now
Yes,
what
I
everyone
did.
is talking about has become real, right?
Yes. Now you mentioned something. You just said we cannot help you with fixing the metadata or clean it, but for now, is it there's plans to do that?
So now what we can do with metadata is that we can give you creative tags, which is also a great use of it. It means that we can tell you which genre it is, what instruments are playing on there, what mood it is, what kind of usages, what's the BPM and the key. So you make it super searchable and also useful for sending to DSPs so that you can be picked up by voice services when you say, play me some jazz, and you at least have the tag jazz there.
Hmm.
Uh, but when I see cleaning up the metadata, it's like it's very hard to identify who the guitar player is on a song based
Yes,
on audio.
yes.
Uh, and
And how would you clean it? Like, what would be the solution to clean it or to find out who's the writer or composer? I mean, there's a lot of music, whether it's new or old, it's kind of just, it's all a mess. Sometimes people put just abbreviation or the first letter and they expect everybody knows who is L. John or J. Smith, like a J, just a lot of J or whatever, you know.
yeah, if I knew the solution for it, I would probably be doing that as well. But that's one of the big problems that big
The
music
industry.
companies have, especially now when catalogs are being bought and aggregated.
Yes.
But we don't see an audio solution for that. We could possibly identify a very specific guitar player, like let's say Santana. Maybe we see,
Hmm.
okay, we can find you other Santana tracks, but it's not something we're aiming for or looking for right now.
Hmm.
There's so many interesting use cases around it.
And there's a lot of money there because metadata is actually it opens the door for the vault of all the writers and composers and neighboring rights that you involved with that hasn't been touched yet
Yeah,
or paid
definitely.
to. Yes.
There's a big potential there, and I don't have the solution now, but I will tell you if I come up with it.
Collaboration is an often key element in the music world. Could you share a memorable collaboration story or someone you've worked with that left an impact or impression on you? A positive one, obviously.
Yeah, there's been a few, but I must say Martin Nedved, who I work with in NRG and on Ames.
Yeah.
Like we've known each other since we were the young kids of production music, hanging around Midem
Hmm.
in Cannes, and he kind of we knew each other for many years, probably 10 years or so before he had the idea for NRG, and the fact that he
Yes.
reached out to me and like, I think you're the right person to bring this global. And then working with him, learning from him, doing aims together has been super inspiring. And thankfully, we're good friends as well, so we can communicate about all sorts of things. But having someone who is intelligent and challenges you is really good, and we collaborate really well together. So I think he's made the most impact on my career.
Great. Great. Well, definitely give him a shout out. A lot of people who's gonna, or I would say, a lot of our listeners and viewers on Soundbreaker will be inspired by this great interview and your story and the path that you chosen and how do you succeeded. Any tips for a lot of people who's going to be inspired when they watch this episode when we release it? Tips how to, what path, what to avoid, what things that not to do, especially we in an industry that there's a lot of gatekeeping in it. So what's your advice and for a lot of the upcoming inspired generation who wants to be in the music business, who want to follow that path, whether it's music tech or offer services, whatever it is?
Yeah, I would say the most important thing for me is building a network
Mm-hmm.
and maintaining it. I think everyone talks about it, but it is crucial because the industry, as I mentioned, is quite small when you look at the global scale. And the
Correct.
people that you get to know, they know someone who is interesting for you. So I always keep that in mind. And I am a very big fan of sharing knowledge. So what I know, I don't keep it as a secret gem. I share it with someone, and I think you call it pay it forward, so that you share it with someone who is new. You save them some time so they can speed up their career, and it will come
Hmm.
back to you tenfold. And
Yes, yes, well said.
yeah, I think that's the key for me. And
Yes.
I come from the Nordics, and we have a very like flat structure here. So you treat everyone the same, no matter what kind of role they have.
Uh-huh.
And I that's inherent in me. So if I'm talking to a CEO, or if I'm talking to an editor, I treat them the same way, and that has definitely paid off because people climb, people change, and just
Correct.
treat people with respect. I think maybe it's a cliche, but I really believe in it. And if you want to be successful, find out what your unfair advantage is in your niche. I mean, with unfair advantage, I mean, what do you know that not everyone knows, or who do you know that not everyone knows? And use that in a good way to build relationships and build businesses. Find out what is the problem that people want to solve.
Yes.
And I go on here, but it's
No,
very
it's okay. That's why we're talking. That's why we're here.
yeah. I think it's super important for the music industry, or a lot of companies in general, is they're looking for this silver bullet that solves a huge problem.
Hmm.
And I'm a big believer in solving valuable problems one at a time. So
Hmm.
when people tell me, "Can you solve our metadata problem," which you mentioned,
Hmm.
then I tell them, "I can't solve all of this, but I can make your music findable for anyone who's looking for a rock track with a guitar." And that in itself brings a certain value. Or
Correct.
imagine if you have one of the biggest catalogs in the world, and you don't
Yes.
know which are instrumentals and which are with vocal.
Hmm.
Just identifying that brings a value. So I tell that to them, like, I know you want to solve everything, but if we solve this, that brings you this value. If we solve this, it will bring you that value. So find out what people are wasting their time on, and what value is lost, and solve it one at a time, and you will, at the end, be a much better place.
Great, great advice. Definitely, absolutely. I'm all for it. I'm sure our listeners are going to find all of this information that you shared with us very insightful and incredibly helpful. Absolutely. Anything that you would like to advertise or to mention for our listeners or viewers on Soundbreaker that you're coming up with in the next week or month or 6 months or this year later on? Any new build out, any new features that you're working on that you would like to share and kind of advertise for it?
We have so many live features right now that they are really strong, but our research
Yeah.
team keeps surprising us with what you can do. So we have link search and file search, where you can search on the audio. You can
Hmm.
pick parts of a song and then search for similar parts to an intro or an outro, etc. And then we have prompt search, where you can just write in whatever you want. And
Hmm.
now we're working on combining all that so that it will be one way of searching. So you can input whatever you want in a search bar, and we will figure it out. And I think that will help implementation, because in music companies, technology is not the main driver. I've seen some of the majors now saying we are as much a tech company as a music company, and I believe in that. I think you
Yes.
need to be forward thinking, and we want to solve music search, and that's our aim. And we're rolling out new features all the time for curators, A&Rs, editors. Music supervisors love this because they have tracks they can't license. We show them other tracks that they can license, and that's their dream
That
when they
that's
are
an
on the
added
table.
value. An added value. Absolutely. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Very.
So again, check it out on aimsapi.com. And if you want to do like a trial of the technology, we have demo links, or you can do it with your own catalog. We don't charge anything for a trial. We believe that the product will sell itself once you try it. And again, we are an API. And I didn't mention this before, but it's a conscious decision to be an API and not a platform. It's that we can connect to any platform, and we are integrated with so many of them. And since we're an API, it's not as much support needed as well. It's very stable, so we don't need to have like a big support team, which means we can invest our money in the things that matter, which is research and dev and sales. So
And adding more features to
adding
your
features
platform.
all the
Yes,
time. Anything that can save time and find great music is what we're
absolutely.
looking for.
This is amazing. Well, unfortunately, all great things come to an end. Definitely enjoyed the interview very much. Very informative for me personally, and for our listeners and viewers who follow us on Soundbreaker and enjoy our podcast interviews. A lot of great people who always bring in something new, new knowledge, new information that I'm honored to share it with everybody. And having people like yourself and others actually to give us that information and share it with the rest of us, as the music business changing and growing on a daily basis, actually, and it's going forward. There's always great changes, but we have to adapt to it. So I would say, it was a pleasure having you today, and thank you for joining us. This concludes our today's episode on Soundbreaker. Please make sure to follow us on socials and stay tuned for new episodes. See you, and thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Bob.
My pleasure. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to share the Soundbreaker podcast. And if you are joining us on YouTube, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Until next time.